All right, let's just dive right into this. I want you to do something for me real quick. Just close your eyes for a second. Now imagine waking up 100,000 years in the past. Open them. Because as this realistic animation shows, this is your reality now. There are no houses, no roads, no hospitals, zero electricity, no supermarkets to run to, no police. You are dropped instantly into an utterly untamed, wild world. Every snap of a twig in the forest is amplified, the weather shifts with zero warning, and a single simple scratch, that could literally be a death sentence. Welcome to this explainer on The Unbreakable Will, How Ancient Humans Conquered the Wild. Today we usually look at nature from the safety of a glass window. But 100,000 years ago, you were prey. Hunger stalked our ancestors literally every single day. If you couldn't find shelter, you froze. If you couldn't find food, starvation set in fast. And honestly, the most terrifying part? Somewhere nearby, right at that very moment, a pack of hungry predators was probably already tracking your scent. Nature ruled absolutely everything. And nature, frankly, was completely ruthless. Now, what's really interesting here is just how massive of an underdog we were. Just look at the apex predators of the time. You've got lions rocking razor-sharp claws, bears with enormous bone-crushing strength, wolves with just unbelievable speed, and animals covered in thick fur to survive the harsh climates. And then there's ancient humans. We had absolutely no natural weapons, no thick fur, no protective scales, no venomous bite. Physically, we were incredibly vulnerable, super weak by comparison. I mean, if survival depended purely on muscle and claws, our story would have ended right then and there, no question. So that brings us to the core mystery of our entire existence. How exactly did the weakest creatures survive the deadliest era in human history? How does a being with incredibly vulnerable skin and zero natural armor not just scrape by, but actually go on to conquer the globe? Well, the answer isn't in our muscles at all. It's what sits right inside our skulls. It was the human brain, capable of planning, learning, and actually imagining the future. All right, Chapter 1, The Equalizers. We're talking about fire and tools. Because nighttime was an absolute battlefield. Looking at the creeping shadows in this realistic animation, you can really start to feel the sheer terror our ancestors faced. Today, the dark is just an inconvenience, right? We just flip a switch. But back then, when that sun went down, the terror spiked. Lions stalked silently. Hyenas scoured the brush. Leopards literally climbed trees looking for victims. Humans had to huddle together, taking turns sleeping in shifts, just absolutely terrified of every strange sound echoing out there. Because one single moment of carelessness in the dark, that meant death. And that's why fire was basically the single most important discovery in human history. Now, it started pretty simply, just preserving natural embers from things like lightning strikes or wildfires. But then came the massive, game-changing leap, actually creating fire ourselves. And this mastery over fire, it led to cooking, which didn't just give us light and scare off the predators lurking out in the pitch black. Cooking made our food safer. It unlocked vastly more nutrition. And that extra energy literally fueled the incredible physical growth of the human mind. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. It perfectly illustrates this idea. Technology became humanity's substitute for natural strength. Because we couldn't grow our own claws, we made them out of sharp stone. Because we couldn't grow fangs, we crafted spears out of branches. Animal bones? Those became needles for clothing. Wood became our shelter. Every single stone knife and bone tool was a human solution to a physical weakness. It allowed us to completely rewrite the rules of the wild. Which brings us to Chapter 2, The Ice Age and the Giants. Just imagine standing face to face with a woolly mammoth. This realistic animation gives you a sense of the sheer scale here. We're talking about a beast that weighs several tons, packing tusks longer than an entire human being. Just one charge from this thing could easily wipe out multiple hunters. Yet ancient humans actually hunted these giants, and not out of boredom, but because survival literally demanded it. The payoff was massive. Meat to survive, super thick hides for clothes, fat to fuel their fires. But actually taking down a mammoth? That required incredibly carefully planned routes, elaborate ambushes, and above all, extraordinary life-or-death teamwork. And man, those thick hides were desperately needed to survive the Ice Age. Because for thousands of years, global temperatures just plummeted. Massive glaciers swallowed huge chunks of the Earth. Food became unbelievably scarce, so humans had to rapidly problem solve. They adapted by wearing those thick animal skins, engineering much stronger weatherproof shelters, discovering ways to store food for the incredibly long winters, and constantly migrating across brutal terrain, just trying to find survivable conditions. It was really the ultimate test of human resilience. Moving right along into Chapter 3, the superpowers: tribe, compassion, and language.
You see, the absolute truth of the ancient world is just this: teamwork proved way stronger than brute strength. A lone human out in the wild faced overwhelming, frankly insurmountable danger. You just could not survive alone out there. The tribe was everything. Protecting the group, sharing food, watching each other's backs, cooperation became our ultimate secret weapon against a world full of solitary powerhouse predators.
And the depth of this teamwork? It's perfectly captured in a truly profound archaeological discovery: ancient skeletons showing evidence of healed injuries. Now really think about what that implies. In a harsh world with zero doctors, zero antibiotics, where broken bone or severe illness basically meant you couldn't hunt or gather, people didn't just leave the weak behind to die. Someone cared for them. Someone brought them food and water while they healed up. This absolutely proves that deep compassion existed even in our very earliest communities. We survived because we took care of each other.
And that incredible bond was cemented by humanity's true superpower: language. This was literally the ultimate survival tool, the ability to share complex information, pass down generations of wisdom, and make knowledge collective. A hunter could verbally warn the group of danger. An elder could teach a child exactly which plants were poisonous. Knowledge no longer just died with the individual. Because of language, every single new generation could start exactly where the previous one left off, rapidly accelerating our dominance over the entire planet.
And finally, Chapter 4, the triumph: from survivors to builders. As brought to life in this realistic animation, tens of thousands of years ago, the very first artists went deep, deep inside caves to paint animals, symbols, and intricate hunting scenes. But why? Well, because the human mind was evolving. We were no longer just entirely focused on, not getting eaten today. We were becoming storytellers. We were actively recording events, exploring complex spiritual beliefs, and expressing ourselves. We had officially become thinkers and dreamers. So our evolution follows this really grand timeline. We started out in an era of pure nomadic survival, where we were actively hunted. Then we leveled the playing field by mastering the elements with fire and crafting tools. And finally, we hit the agricultural breakthrough. Instead of constantly moving around looking for scraps, we figured out how to actually grow crops and domesticate animals. We built permanent settlements. Those small villages turned into towns, and those towns eventually sparked the dawn of early civilizations. The incredibly long age of mere survival had finally ended. Humanity had officially begun building the modern world. After outlasting apex predators, surviving the brutal climate shifts of the Ice Age, enduring terrible famines, and fighting off disease, our ancestors laid the unbreakable foundation for absolutely everything we enjoy today. The endless fleeing had stopped, and the building had begun. Which leaves us with this final, really profound thought to reflect on. Our greatest weapon was never a spear. It was the human spirit. Seriously, every towering skyscraper, every spacecraft, every piece of modern technology you use today, it all traces right back to those vulnerable early humans huddled around a flickering campfire in the dark, absolutely refusing to give up. So I'll leave you with this question. If the ancient human spirit was strong enough to conquer the untamed wild with nothing but a few rocks and some fire, what is that exact same unbreakable will capable of achieving today?